So, could life actually emerge spontaneously inside a computer? Now, I know it sounds like something straight out of science fiction, right? But some really fascinating research suggests the answer might just be yes. Let's dive into this world of computational life and see what happens when code, well, when it starts to act alive.
You know, we've been asking ourselves forever how life first sparked into existence. It's one of the biggest, most fundamental questions out there. But what if the answer isn't just about biology? What if it's also about computation?
We all have that classic picture in our heads, right? The primordial soup, a bunch of chemicals sloshing around on ancient Earth, maybe getting zapped by lightning. But this research asks us to imagine a totally different kind of soup, a digital one. A universe where the ingredients aren't atoms and molecules, but tiny, random bits of code.
And this gets us into the really cool field of artificial life. See, it's not just about trying to copy the life we already know. It's about exploring all the wild ways that life could exist. The big goal here? To see if a major milestone for life, self-replication, can just happen on its own, inside a computer.
So the one thing we're looking for, the key player in this whole story, is the self-replicator. You can think of it as that very first spark. It's anything, whether it's a piece of RNA in biology or a snippet of code in our digital world that can make a perfect copy of itself. The second a self-replicator shows up, you've crossed this incredible line from just random chaos to the very beginnings of life.
So to test this idea, the researchers basically built a digital petri dish. They created a simple, closed-off universe, filled it up with a ton of random code, and then they just stepped back to see what would happen. No nudging, no guiding, just pure observation.
And the setup for this whole experiment is actually pretty straightforward. Their universe is just this big soup with over 130,000 little random programs. The physics of this universe are just the rules of a very basic programming language. And this is the most important part. There is absolutely no goal. The programs aren't being pushed to evolve or get better. They just exist and they interact.
So how do they interact? Well, it's like a simple four-step dance. First, the computer picks two random programs out of the soup. Let's call them A and B. It temporarily sticks them together. Then it runs this new combined program. And here's the real magic. As that code runs, it can actually rewrite itself, changing the original programs A and B before putting them back in the soup. That's the engine for everything that follows.
For a long time, this digital soup is, well, it's a mess. Just total chaos. The programs bump into each other, they change each other, but it's all just random noise. Kinda like digital sludge with no pattern or structure. But then, something happens. Something really dramatic.
So the researchers had this complexity meter to track what was going on. And for thousands and thousands of rounds, they call them epochs, that meter just stays flat, dead flat. It's just random digital noise. Nothing interesting is happening at all.
And then, bam, this happens. The complexity meter doesn't just tick up a little bit, it absolutely skyrockets. This is a huge, system-wide change. It's a massive signal that something totally non-random, something with real structure, has just shown up and taken over the whole digital universe. So, what on earth caused that incredible spike? Well, the paper puts it pretty simply. Self-replicators tend to arise. That huge jump in complexity, that is the signature of life's very first step. Out of absolutely nowhere, just from random interactions, programs that could copy themselves emerged and completely took over. Let me just walk you through the story from one of the simulations. It's amazing. At round 2354, one program just happens to create a self-copying loop in another one. Boom, a replicator is born. Just 12 rounds later, the original is accidentally deleted. But it's okay, because its copies are already out there spreading. Then, an even better replicator evolves, one that's way more efficient at copying itself, and it just floods the entire soup. You're literally watching digital evolution happen in real time.
Okay, so you might be thinking, was this just a 1 in a million lucky accident? That's what the researchers wanted to know. So they ran the whole experiment over and over and over again to see if this was a real, repeatable thing. And the results are just, wow. They ran it over 1,000 times. And about 40% of the time, self-replicators emerged from all that random interaction. Now here's the kicker. They almost never just appeared by pure chance at the very beginning. They had to be built step by step through interaction.
And what's really crucial to understand is that this isn't just about random mutations, like a digital cosmic ray flipping a 1 to a 0. They actually turned off mutations completely, and the replicators still showed up at about the same rate. So the driving force here isn't luck. It's the programs actively writing and rewriting each other into existence.
But okay, does this only work in their one specific, weird artificial universe? Nope. They tried it again, this time emulating a real-world computer chip, the Z80 from old-school 80s computers. And guess what? The exact same thing happened. Replicators popped up, and they even evolved to use more advanced complex instructions that were built into the chip.
It gets even cooler when you can actually see it. They set up another experiment where the programs were arranged on a 2D grid and could only interact with their direct neighbors. When you watch it, you can literally see different species of replicators competing for territory. It looks like waves of one type washing over and replacing another. It's a true digital ecosystem.
But here's a twist. It doesn't just happen in any digital universe. Sometimes the best way to understand why something works is to find a situation where it completely fails. And the researchers found a universe where that spark of life just wouldn't ignite.
The difference all came down to the programming language, the physics of their universe. In their original language, a simple replicator program can be really short and simple, which makes it way easier for one to be created by accident. But in this other language, Sublec, the shortest possible self-replicator is super long and complex. The jump is just too big. It's basically impossible to build one through random interactions.
Okay, let's pull all of this together. We have just watched a kind of lifelike behavior literally emerge from a soup of random code. So what are the big takeaways from this incredible digital experiment?
Well, here are the big ones. First, some form of digital life absolutely can arise spontaneously. Second, the engine driving it isn't just random luck. It's the active process of programs changing each other. Third, this isn't a fluke. It happens in different kinds of computational universes. And finally, the fundamental laws of physics of that universe, the programming language itself, are what make this incredible leap either possible or impossible.
And that really just leaves us with one final mind-bending thought. If a self-copying piece of code is basically the digital version of the first living cell, what comes next? What kind of amazing complexity or intelligence or evolution could spring up from here? It really feels like the digital petri dish is just getting started.